Hey guys, it's Chris Tan, and on this episode, I have a very special guest who started off in the motoring industry, eventually worked his way to become one of the most influential figures on social media, and also comes out on CNN. But for me, I know him primarily because of our common interest in mixed martial arts. But today he's here to talk about the lockdown, how it's affected him, and how it's affecting everyone, and how we can all move forward. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll introduce you my good friend, James Deacon.
Hey James, how are you?
Hey Chris, what's up? Hey, this is so cool, man.
I know, can you imagine?
Here
But
I
how are
am.
you doing? You're like, look at your man cave there. It looks pretty nice, huh?
Yeah, there are worse places to be cooped up and isolated, man. I can't complain, or I could complain, but nobody would listen. So you know what? Let's just sort of sit here and do our bit. It's all about, if you can't do anything, just stay home. Sometimes less is more. This is a case where less is more. Stay at home, isolate, and just keep abreast of everything online. There's not a lot we know about it, but there's also some things that we can put in the bank that we really know about it. And one of it is the stages that it goes through. So seeing Iran go through it, Italy go through it, my brother being in the medical field and emergency care, telling us, guys, pace yourselves. Pace yourselves. If you know you're going to be in quarantine for at least, I'm putting at least a month, but I'm expecting about 6 weeks of this lockdown. So you're able to pace yourself mentally, physically, and all that to get through it. Because I know there's a lot of people sort of expelling all their energy in the beginning, screaming, shouting about everything that they saw wrong. And you know what? The situation is so fluid, Chris, that if you look back on what you said yesterday, you can really feel like a real. So be careful what you say. Be careful what you freaked out about.
Yep.
There's too much to worry about for you to be worrying about the small things and all that. If you're confused, it's very simple. Stay at home, okay? Proper hygiene. These are just the basics that you need to remember. Isolation, stay away from other people. If they could wave a magic wand, all they would want people to do is stay away from each other for 2 weeks, and the virus would basically die out. Because as horrible as it sounds, the infected people will get better. Some will pass away because there is a mortality rate.
Yep.
But that incubation period, if you were able to wave a magic wand and keep every human away from each other for 2 weeks, it automatically kills this, and we come back stronger because we would have developed our own immunities to it.
Right. But like when you first heard of the lockdown, were you immediately like, okay, this is gonna work, let's do this? Or did you have
Mm-hmm.
reservations? Were you scared?
No, I was scared, but I was more, this needs to be done than, is there any other way to do it? So I was never in the frame of mind that, baka there's another way. No, I was always like, because I was following Italy so closely. I was following Wuhan, and I could see how every act of non-compliance, you pay a bigger price the next day. It's exponential. I'm trying to think of, like I relate to racing, you relate to martial arts. But in racing, if you're going to race for a 50-lap race versus a 10-lap race, there are two different strategies to all of this, right?
Yep.
So it's going to be a long haul. You pace yourself, you manage your tires, you manage your brakes. In the case of martial arts, you would do all the things that you normally do to make sure you have a gas tank and all that. So that's just how I was looking at it. I was scared, but the overall sense of there's no other way was stronger. So just do this. Because if there was an easier way, I guarantee you China would have figured it out, Iran would have figured it out, or Italy would have figured it out. I mean,
Right.
that's just the way it is. If there was a shortcut or a way to reduce the impact, because the impact of this is massive, trust me, they would have found a way.
But like you're saying that immediately when they announced the lockdown or before they announced the lockdown, you were on board.
I was totally on board. I was actually in self-quarantine already. So I
Oh,
went into self-quarantine on March 13th.
before they
And
locked
even
down.
before they locked down, because I could see already this is going to be, the only thing you can do here is to try to go self-quarantine. So I went March 13, right after my CNN show on the morning. I went straight to the studio and I locked myself down. So I was already prepared for it mentally before even Duterte came out with his press con. I think it was that night. Then I think on the 15th they called it. So I was already in that frame of mind.
Right.
And I was already going to be like, look, if anything, um, the only role I could play here, if I play one, because I'm not a medical professional, I'm not a frontliner. So there could be, the only role I could play here is to be some kind of an online source, a calming voice, somebody to promote a little unity. So just use your social media for that. That's my only contribution to this. So I know I could knuckle down, pace myself, and be that voice that people needed, because we do need as many calm voices as we can out there.
It's interesting that you are already with the right frame of mind, that you were able to self quarantine already. How about your family? How do you do that? Because you have your kids, your wife,
Yeah.
and like, do you guys
Yeah.
self quarantine from each other, or
Yeah, we did.
really?
Okay, we did because all right. When it first happened, we're in a fortunate enough position that I have a place in Makati that I use for work, and if need be, I can put a bed in here and actually sleep over. Sometimes it's just on the couch if it's like a really late production and stuff like that. I'll stay on the couch. So with that, having the option, not everyone has the option. So I can only speak for my case. And in my case, I had the option. So I just told the fam, listen, March 13, I noticed Tugade went into self-quarantine, and so did Mark Villar. And these are people who I've come in contact with and their staff. So they weren't positive or anything like that. But I said, look, it's just being prudent.
Yep.
Alabang is a well away from Makati. You're almost in a freaking another province in some ways with 2 hours driving. So what I'll do, I'll just stay here for a few days. I'll just put some distance between myself, the people who I've been working around. And look, if I don't get any symptoms in a week, 5 days or so, then what's 5 days? Then 5 days led into, the building that I was in got 3
I heard.
cases. So not actually the building I was in, but the complex. So it's like, okay, this is starting to get really close to home now. So once again, you've already made some sacrifices. Sayang lang, diba? Try and make the most of those sacrifices, because I could go back. And the problem with me going back is this. If I go back, that's no problem. I'm not showing any symptoms. I've been over the 2-week period, I think now. I've lost track of days. I have to check the inside of my wardrobe, because that's where I scratch the numbers of the days. But the thing is, my wife said to me something that kind of made sense, or is she just trying to get rid of me? I'm not sure. She said to me, listen, no problem. You can come home, of course, but are you going to be going backwards and forwards to work? I said, yeah, I need to, because I need to use the studio. I still have a lot of editing work that, all the equipment's over there. So she said, if that's the case, can you just stay na lang? Stay na lang, because you're going to just whatever, they're being so obsessive with the quarantine over there in the village that you're only as good as your weakest link, right? So if I'm going out, I don't know who I'm exposed to and all that. And I come back home, and basically I just put them in the exact same situation I'm in. So all of their efforts are kind of cyan. So we discussed it as a family. We said, look, it's not such a massive sacrifice. Of course it's painful, but on the greater scheme of things, when you look at the doctors, Chris, that have lost their lives doing this, they're really only asking us for one thing. They're only asking us to stay home. That's it. They're not asking us to put on a dodgy set of PPEs that they don't know if it's even up to standard and work on infected patients for it. They're not asking that. They're not asking you to drive for them. They're not asking you to put yourself at risk. They're just asking you to stay home. These are extenuating circumstances. We all need to do our bit.
So I didn't realize when you said self-quarantine, you're literally alone. You've been alone for the last week. Over a week now. Yeah.
Well, there was initially where it was like a couple of days, few days where my staff were coming over, just to help set up the broadcast system and stuff like that, like the microphones. And I wasn't quite sure how to get it all set up. But that was before it hit major lockdown. Then after that, the building put a lockdown on visitors.
Right.
So now they're really strict. You can't come in if that's it.
But can you go out? What about groceries?
I can.
You can.
I can go out. Yeah.
Have you?
I have. I go out not every day. I try to do it once every other day or every 3 days. Now, in our group, in the building, we have our own WhatsApp groups and stuff like that. And every time somebody goes out now, they put in the group, hey, I'm going to Restance. Who wants what? And,
nice.
this is how we do it. And there's even these apps that they use. I haven't actually done it yet, but there's apps where you split the bill and all that. So
Oh,
it's very, yeah, it's very, it's real community spirit, because they're all like, listen, this is the only way to be able to contain it is by limiting our movements. So if one person's going, just bring back the stuff for us, leave it at reception, we'll pick it up.
Yeah.
It's little things, Chris, but they all add up.
But you know what's scary about that as well? I mean, I think a lot of people may not realize is when you ask somebody to buy you something, for example, they bring it back, right? They leave it at the lobby. That could also have an infection on it, on the
Oh
product,
yeah.
or the good, right? How do you, like, do you actually disinfect everything you get? Or, like, because I honestly, I haven't gone to that extreme yet, but I'm starting to get extremely paranoid that I want to wipe everything I touch and everything that's delivered, because even the delivery guy that delivers this,
Yeah.
if he's
Yeah.
infected, that infects a lot of people.
That I don't know. I think that falls under the, I wouldn't call it acceptable risks. That's kind of an insensitive way to put it. But there are some risks that you really just can't
Uh,
avoid,
yeah,
unless you walk around in your own PPE and disinfect everything. But realistically, we can't do that.
right.
So I try my best. I do wipe down. I haven't been as prudent with wiping down, let's say, delivery food. There, that's now an area I'm going to be very conscious of. But now maybe if you're really praying, go for the canned goods na lang for now. And once again, you got to keep these things in perspective. It's not something you want to contract, all right? But it's not a death sentence if you contract it. At least not you and I. Just by numbers. Of course, it
Right.
can happen. We've lost doctors who are in their mid-30s, right? It's a fallacy to say that people of a certain age group are not at risk. That's complete crap. They are at risk, but the numbers show that we will be okay, the statistics.
Yep.
But you still just want to make sure that you're not making it worse for anyone else, because it's not about you and I. It's about the impact we have later on our healthcare systems, because they're literally at that stage already yesterday, and I think maybe even the day before, where they're literally completely out of respirators. So it's just that.
And not only that, but because the system is overloaded right now, the medical system so overloaded, there are a lot of other treatments that cannot be done right now because they're overloaded. I have a friend who has to do chemo, and their
Yeah.
immune system's compromised, and then he has to go to the hospital. That's scary for somebody who has cancer, because now you've got other things to worry about. So I think that's the biggest problem. Now, I know that recently you've had a little bit of controversy, but then I'm sure you're used to controversy at this point, aren't you?
I am.
Okay.
I mean, it goes to the territory. I wish I could, exclude it, untick that box, but it's like death and taxes.
Okay, I'm gonna ask you, because I'm gonna ask you a question that could come out controversial, but I'm gonna ask you
Okay.
anyway. So I was driving around the other day because I had to pick up something, and then I passed through an area where there's a lot of squatters, the squatter area,
Mm,
and I noticed they don't do social distancing,
yeah.
and even in the palenque, they don't do social distancing at all.
Yeah.
What's your take on it?
Oh man.
Because if whatever we do, if everyone is not doing it, this is not going to end. And we know that in the urban poor communities, they are so densely populated that they could already be infected and infecting a lot of others. And yet, I don't know who should be responsible for this. What can we do?
It's a very tricky one, Chris, because you have to. We always try to put ourselves or understand the plight of the urban poor, but this is a greater risk for everyone. You must distance yourself from it and look at the greater good for the entire country.
Yeah.
And we don't really have, and not that I've seen anyway, I'm sure that we have, but I don't have access to data that shows how developing countries with the level of urban poor that we have, in the density, the population density that we have, I don't see many studies out there, or any studies I can really refer to, because when you compare it to Wuhan, which is a very developed
Yep.
city of 11 million people, and Iran and Italy, I don't know the demographic profile of Iran, how that looks, but I think it's fair to say that we are the first test case of a third world country with this kind of dense population and these challenges that you mentioned about urban poor living in such close quarters, etc., with poor sanitation and hygiene. So
Yes.
this is what worries me a lot.
Uh,
We don't have quarantine centers to put them in, so it's not like we can say, oh guys, stay a meter apart, because you're also dealing with a very established mindset of when you're poor and you're living day to day, you will only deal with the threats that you can see and
yeah.
feel, which is food and shelter. When you're trying to talk to the poor people about an invisible enemy that may or may not get them, that's a very tough sell.
Yeah.
um,
But
how do you convince them that this is for the greater good when they can't actually see it?
yeah, but it's not even trying to convince them. I think, James, the problem is quite a few of the people in the urban poor communities are living in a box with 6, 7 to 10 people in a
Yeah,
space that's so small. They're literally sleeping side by side. Their
yeah,
kitchen is beside them. What do you like?
yeah.
They don't have the capability to social distance. That I think is the biggest problem. It's not even a choice. It is they don't know what to do. What are they going to do?
No, they
Leave their
don't.
homes, diba?
They don't. They don't know what to do. And in a case like this, the obvious answer, without pointing fingers or blame, is the obvious answer is government should require or have emergency facilities for quarantine. This is an unprecedented situation, so we're trying our best as citizens not to hate on everything that's happening, because nobody's been through this before. Even the
Yep.
best countries are ill prepared. But yes, without trying to paint out a bad picture, I think this is something that government need.
Yeah.
Is they need to have systems in place for pandemics and quarantines, and this is one of them. So how can you expect the urban poor to? Yes, we can say, listen, it's not a choice, you just have to do it. That's why we have the military and all that. But if you're not giving them anything, if you're going to put them from the frying pan to the fire, we have to be a little bit realistic with it. So I don't know the answer. I don't envy the people who are in a position to have to give that answer. But I think the most obvious, if we had it, is definitely government quarantine centers where they can really maintain the social distancing for them through the beds, evacuation centers, etc. We just don't have that.
I think the governments should make this a top priority. But I don't. I think, to be honest with you, it's not even for want of. It's not even for the lack of want to do it. It's more, I think, the lack of awareness that this is so important, that they not just tell people to go home, but give them an option to where they can go. Like maybe looking at a gymnasium, a barangay hall, a basketball court, setting up quarantine areas where people can distance themselves, families can.
I agree with you in principle, 100%. I've just seen it in reality with typhoons and stuff, which
Yeah.
really, not every barangay is hit by a typhoon, right? Not every this is, and not just the entire country, or almost, well, at least Luzon. Let's just go Luzon wide. This is already the rest of the world. So you can't even get your neighbors to come and help because they're dealing with their own crisis. This is
Right.
why it's so impossible to sort of say, if we couldn't space out people and put them in evacuation centers for typhoons, which we have every year, we have
Yep.
a season every year, guaranteed. You know what? We can fill out our appointment books and log it down. Okay, there's not a year that's gone by where we haven't had our typhoons, and yet when it comes, we all go, "Ay, oh my God, when did that come? How did that happen?" We always act surprised. So lalo pa this. Um,
So
Gosh, I wish I had the answer for you. I'm careful what I say these days, not because I want to avoid controversy, but because I think the mindset is as equally, there's so many people focusing on so many things, right? We have all
yes.
the news sources doing nothing but 24-hour news, right? They don't need me there. So I'm not there to break news for you. I'm not there to try and scoop the rest of the people. I really couldn't care less if I was the 10th person or the 20th person or the 50th person to break the news, but I promise you I'll be responsible about it.
Yeah.
You can know that if you go to the page, it's a source of valuable and reliable, verified information. And yes, it's not going to be cutting edge, but hey, if you don't find out the news 5 minutes before your friend, believe me, that's not going to be the deal breaker here. The deal breaker here is just keeping calm, because that's why I want to focus my attention and my efforts on keeping people calm, because panic will kill us more than the virus.
Yeah.
We've seen it already through hoarding. We haven't experienced yet mass crime or anything like that, and I hopefully to God we do not experience any of that, because that will just lead to we'll lose control of that, and nobody wins with that. Nobody. So I want to make sure that I always maintain a tone of calmness. I don't want to get too into the okay, this is all wrong, etc. There's some things I want to comment on. That's just my frame of mind, Chris. It's not for my personal, oh, I don't want to get the controversy. No, it's like I will only have 24 hours a day. I only have so much energy to give. If I spend that energy fighting haters that go, oh, see, whatever, because it's, you know what, I'm wasting all the valuable time that I could be using just bringing people together, calming them down, sharing resources. There's so many positive things that you can do on a page with a following that's what I want to focus my energy on. That's why it bugs me to death when I see mainstream media picking fights for no reason. I mean, it's so trivial. It's, guys, grow up. And now, does it seem so silly now? A week later, you realize that we have bigger problems to deal with than just, oh, he misplaced a word, or he did this, or he did that.
Right.
You know,
okay,
so grow up a little bit.
So what's your take then? Interesting how you brought it up. And what's your take right now? Because of the coronavirus, I think it shows that there are a lot of, I've been getting a lot of fake news, conspiracy theories, and people believe this shit. But what's your take on it? Like in terms of fake news and conspiracy theories, and how to be able to watch out for it and be careful of it, because there's a lot spreading around right now.
Okay, stay out of the hot zone. And by that, I mean, you're right there on the breaking edge of news. You're never going to get reliable information if you're sitting there at the breaking edge of news wanting to be first, because there's so much high risk. That's like I'll go back to racing terms again, because that's why I'm saying that's like a car dangling on the edge. When it has an accident, you don't say it's an accident. No, it was begging to happen because they were just dangling on the knife's edge. That's what you're doing when you're checking your phone every 2 minutes. All right, you're trying to get fed with news because you're putting your brain into a state of mind. I'll try this with you. Let me just try a little. Spell silk.
I'm sorry, spell.
Can you spell the word silk?
Silk. SILK.
Very good. Now, what do cows drink?
I was gonna say milk.
Okay, you were gonna say milk. All right.
But because I thought about it a little bit, I didn't react.
Okay, because I exactly 9 out of 10 people or 8 out of 10 people will say milk straight away. Like you had to pause and you were like, okay, I was gonna say milk. Why? Because your brain was prepped for it.
Right. I like that.
I asked you to spell silk. All right. So there's a point to this because you say spell silk, SILK. That's already in your brain. So what do cows drink? Milk. There are many examples of this, and like 8 or 9 out of 10 people fail it because you prepared your brain. What you do is when you prepare your brain for bad news, you're picking up only certain signals. You're picking up only frequencies that you have tuned into. That's very important to get out of that zone. Don't in the airport when you come from your flight, and those people that stand past the yellow line, the baggage carousel, don't be that person. Stay a few steps behind. Your luggage will still come. You won't miss it. I guarantee you. You can stay 10 steps behind. You'll still see it come out. You don't have to be right there in the front blocking everybody because it takes a while, dude. By the time the luggage comes up, you're like, oi, I think I see my maleta. You have time to say goodbye to the friend. I'll see you later. Okay, say goodbye. All right, go. And then you walk to your maleta. Why do you have to be right there? Okay, that's the same with news. Don't be right there in the hot zone behind the yellow line. Because even if you do get your breaking news and you're 3 minutes ahead of your friends, how has that helped you? Has it really given you 3 minutes advantage? Have you fled the city 3 minutes before us? No, because you're not allowed to flee the city. So in knowing that, the risk versus reward, there's not much reward there. So what's the risk? The risk is you are donating the most valuable commodity in today's era, your attention. So now you're forcing news groups to fight over your attention. Step back a little bit. It'll force the news agencies to be a little bit more responsible, to take just the extra breath to say, wait, let's verify this first.
Right.
Rappler just got busted today. Well, they came out with their erratum today. You know, how embarrassing that is at this point in time where they called Cayetano fake news. There's nothing to do with personalities. I have no affiliation with any political party or anything, but they had to apologize. You know what that does to your credibility when you're trying at the moment to be that credible source? But for the sake of a minute or two, you jumped the gun. Why? Maybe you wanted to believe that news. Maybe that was in your head already. Maybe that was where you were just waiting for the fact to fall into place. Not fact, I use loosely, but the nugget to fall into place. That's the information you need to tie it together. But boom, Oriente.
But I think also
stay back a bit.
Yeah, I think also there are a lot of people that are just spreading news that aren't even news. Like somebody's like how it happened with the looting at one point. People were
Yeah.
spreading stories, urban myths, legends about, oh, this happened to my tita's daughter's friend, and
Yeah. Yeah.
then you ask who's tita, whose daughter, and then there's nobody. It's
Yeah, I
crazy.
got it from a group. I got it from a group, dude.
Yeah, exactly. And then for me, I think people are excited. Generally, us citizens are also excited to share stories like that because we like the idea of the one to break it to our friends that I knew it first. So there's that ego of letting everyone know that I was the one who first told everyone about it, whether it's true or not. It's
Dude, that
crazy.
is primal. It's that thing you just mentioned is mentioned in the book Sapiens. It's a primal need. The need to have information that other people don't have is one of the most valuable things in society. It gives you power. So even if you don't understand the whole what you're doing, it's in you. It's how we're programmed as human beings. We now have that's how we structure our society. We give we want to stand out, we want to have information other people have, it gives us power. So some people don't do it with bad intentions, and they can be just as damaging. The one that says better to be safe than sorry na lang anak, that's a person that doesn't have bad intentions, but the result is still very bad. It's just as bad as had you just made that up, because the effect will still go out. Remember, not everyone will get the disclaimer, better to be safe than sorry anak, because once that anak sends it out, you've lost that thing and it's now out there like wildfire. Like I remember somebody spread the news of the looting, and that affected the grocery stores straight away,
Oh my God.
because the problem with fake news is something like that. When you talk about looting and panic, it can become real fast. But do you know what that could do? We're living in a powder keg right now. The smallest spark could start something that we could quickly lose control over. This is why I keep telling people to just please, if you're confused about anything, try to live like this. Treat yourself as positive,
Yes.
COVID positive, always, and treat every news that you get as fake unless it comes from a credible news source. When I say credible news source, yes, our mainstream sometimes get it wrong, but there's accountability that's far greater than your tita in the WhatsApp group that knows a friend who knows a friend from church who really it happened to. Okay, so there's accountability. And if you share from GMA7, ABS, CNN, whatever you share from, the liability goes to them. What
Yes.
you don't want to do is pull that out information and send it out, because then we lose control of the source. Remember, there's a reason they call it viral, because it shares so much with the virality of these diseases. Fake news spreads a lot faster because
Yep.
with COVID, it's by contact. Some say it's a little airborne, but within a few meters. Online, that's the whole world, man.
By the way, I have a question. Just going off topic, how are you keeping sane and fit?
Okay, I was going to ask you tips on the fit part, but sane, I have no problem keeping sane because I'm very used to working from remotely anywhere. So I've worked in the back of vans. I've worked in the back of, I've worked in hotel rooms around the world. I literally, wherever I lay my hat is my home for the past 15, 20 years when it comes to this job. So I'm cool with that. I've been through worse. I've driven across Australia alone for 13 days. No, I'm 13. I had my wife with me then. But okay, I was one time I did like 9 days alone in a car
Wow.
across a desert. Yeah, my mind's used to stuff like this. I really have no problem with that. Then, of course, we still have internet. So we
Right.
still have Netflix. We still have all of these things that we can keep ourselves entertained with. Plus, my work, like I said, I can do it from here. So I can, making a video can take a whole day. If you by the time you edit and shoot and talk to people and research and put it together, that can take a full day. So
Yep.
that's your whole day, boom, and you realize, oh my God, it's the end of the day now. Let's go and talk to the fam, watch Netflix or whatever. So I'm fine with that. The fit part, I had a guest on yesterday, Coach Shapi Calianta. I don't know if you know him, but he shared some tips on how to work out in confined spaces. But maybe you got tips, because I know that that's your alley and your expertise. How do you do it?
Well, actually, I don't know if this is even, I should be saying this, but I go downstairs and I run around down the street, like where I live. So I run about 5 kilometers. So it's two and a half going and 2.5 back, but there's nobody in the streets. It's a residential
Yeah.
street. So I'm not sure if I'm being irresponsible by doing that or not, because I need to get some sun. So
I don't
it's
think so.
bad, but
I don't think so. I think it's they like in the village in our village they banned it. Okay, now if your village bans it, then yes, you have to respect it for whatever reason. But if they haven't, no, people are on the street. So long as you maintain that social distancing, you're fine. Don't touch anything.
right.
I mean, physical fitness is as important as anything else. So if you want to maintain healthy, you'll need to keep fit.
Exactly.
But some buildings, like where I am, they limited it to the car park.
So
So
you can't walk around outside in the village.
no. So they were pretty strict with that. They came up with a memo like a couple of days ago saying, um, we're sorry, but if you want to walk your pet, it's in basement 2 car park. If you want to walk yourself, it's P5. So you're like, but you know what? We get it. Nobody's complaining because I think the buildings are doing what they can, and there have been positive cases, so they're doing everyone's respecting it.
So basically, you're saying that for every building, you can only walk within your building. That's what they're trying
within your building, yeah, within your car park and building. They don't want you visiting even each other in units.
Right.
No, they don't even want. They even discourage you visiting each other in buildings. Like my neighbor wanted to borrow a coffee grinder right now, and we were like, how do we do this? It's like, we're only a few floors apart. I said, okay, I can leave it in reception for you.
Put it in a disinfected container, and then that it gets disinfected and pull it out. That's the way I can imagine. Otherwise, you're right. Even neighbors shouldn't be visiting each other right now. I think. Well, how do you think this is going to impact our lives after the lockdown?
Well, that's a great question. I'm hoping for the good, and I'll keep repeating the same message because I think that every time we come from a tragedy like this or some kind of a crisis, it's there to shape us for something in the future. I don't necessarily look at it as a punishment for what we've done to the earth, although we have done a lot. But in this case, COVID-19 is, well, it's going to change us forever, put it that way. And it will prepare us for the next stage of humanity because we're always evolving. We're designed to evolve. If we don't evolve, we die. And the only reason we're going to come up with something radical is when something radical happens to us because we're creatures of habit. We're creatures of comfort. So we will only deal with the imminent threat. If there's no imminent threat, why would we consider something, let's say, like a work from home program that's absolutely mainstream? Why would we even develop? Why would software companies develop the programs that you need to really work from home? Chris, I'm not talking about what we're doing now. I'm talking about mainstream 9 to 5. This is the norm. This is not the exception, but the norm. So there's so many jobs out there that could be farmed out to work from home and done properly. That's how I'm hoping society will change there, because the kind of impact that will have on our transport network, our population density, you know how many problems that would solve? Even if you don't do it for COVID-19 or any pandemic, it will solve so many other civil and social issues that it's, I don't want to say the word worth it, because anyone that's lost a loved one to this, it's never going to be worth it. But this is how humanity grows. It's just the way it does. It's nature doing its thing to either correct itself or what we've done, or to prepare us for the future. Depends how you look at it.
Right.
I like to think that it is shaping us to go, you know what, now that this is no longer an option, you have to go and work this way. And now people are going to stop shaking hands. I think shaking hands will be like the new bad example, safe sex thing. It's going to take on that approach. You know how after AIDS came out, it was like, okay, everyone has to wear a condom. It became the norm. Well, I think now you will probably not reach out anymore and shake hands anymore. I think this will die. And you know what? That's not a bad thing, because as nice as it is, it's a gesture, right? But the gesture is only symbolic. I'm trying to do a bit of research here, so I hope your followers and you or anyone here listening can help me fact check this. But my understanding of the handshake, I'm told, stemmed from to show that you're unarmed.
Yes.
I don't know if that is it.
That is true. Yes.
So there was a reason for that. Okay, we no longer have that reason, but we kept the tradition.
Yeah.
So the actual act of shaking hands in modern times is not anymore well, we have scanners to show that you're armed, so we don't need to do this, but we got used to it. So maybe something like COVID-19 will change behavior to go, all right, well, how do we still show the person in front of us that I acknowledge you, I respect you? Maybe this is what the bow came from. I don't know. There had to be some reason that certain cultures did this and Americans did that.
Americans
Europeans
did this because they have a gun problem.
But these are the things that exactly to your question, how it changes society. I know we're a very demonstrative and affectionate race, and I love that about the Pinoys. That's what part of what makes us us. But I think really now we'll have to take a hard, close look at beso beso with everybody, everyone.
Even
Hey,
like,
your mom, your sister, your brother.
yeah, hugging.
Fine.
Hugging is such a way to show affection, closeness.
But to strangers, how many
That's about it,
business contacts? I'm talking about flashback before COVID-19. How many girls, like acquaintances? I'm talking business, like you meet an agency, whatever. I do. I'm guilty of it. Hi, beso beso.
Yeah.
These are professionals, but okay, we built up a little bit of a friendship over time, but maybe that's just got to be like, okay, we're living in a different world, man.
Yeah.
And this pandemic is just waking up a whole new threat for us that people in the intelligence agencies have been talking about for decades.
Yeah.
Bill Gates has had his viral
Yes.
TED Talk for how long? The NSA have come out and saying that this was what they were telling Trump was the #1 threat to the country, not nuclear, not anything else but a pandemic. And we don't take them seriously. We all think that we are invincible. So now we need something as drastic as this. When I say it, I'm not choosing it. It chose us, right? But something like this has got to bring on some positive effects to society and change us to be able to be a little bit more efficient in the future. That's how I look at it. What I'm finding one of the hardest things to do, touching your face.
Yeah.
That's I mean, like now that we've been doing a lot of these podcasts like this, and we do them live a lot, and it's viewers who call me out all the time. And now that they call me out, I watch every other person, and it's the hardest thing to do. Even the WHO guys are on TV touching their face because it's the most natural thing in the world to do. So I'm always now trying to be very conscious of it. I'm still bad at it. I'm sure when you review this video, you're going to count how many times I touch my face. But it's very hard.
Surprisingly enough, James, you haven't touched your face that much. But now that you're seeing it, I'm about to touch mine because there's always an itch somewhere.
There's always something, no? And we don't even realize that it's happening. You're talking about taking the virus seriously, and not just before this, you were saying about how seriously to take the virus. Because we go in stages, right? We have Wuhan, we have Iran, we have Italy as one of the first 3 major countries to get it, right?
This is now number 4.
And South Korea.
Yeah, US is number 3 or number 4 now, fast growing. I'm so scared for them.
Yeah, no, I'm terrified for them because a doctor, I think it was the Ministry of Health in Singapore, who was giving his press conference, explained it as this will expose the strength of government, the strength of healthcare as a system and institution, and social compliance. They are the tripods. All 3 are equal. This is why people are collapsing, because healthcare is the one collapsing, but they're usually relying on government and social compliance. We haven't seen many countries that have gone through this without the social compliance.
Yep.
Because Italy, in the beginning, they were, and they paid the price for that. But they once they started seeing people dying and doctors dying, they started. The U.S. frightens me because unlike the Philippines, where we have a lack of compliance here, a lack of compliance is different to being defiant. I'm seeing defiance in the U.S. They're purposely going out saying, "You can't tell me what to watch, where to go, what to do." That's a problem because you're not seeing people like that here. What you're seeing are people going, "I got to eat, I got to work." But you're seeing a lot of these in Australia and in America. It's a totally different level of defiance. It's almost like the gun thing. I got my rights.
Yeah, and the scary part is actually, I just heard watched the press conference that Trump did, and he looks frustrated. He said that I might just end this lockdown early. Like he wants to end it before Easter. He was saying, I'm like, oh my God. that's going to be a major disaster if he ends it by Easter, because he really wants. I don't think he's going to do it. I think he's just speaking out of frustration, because it is very frustrating when you're seeing economies collapse. The U.S. economy is collapsing. Our economy is collapsing. There's going to be a lot of businesses that are going to go under, James. A lot of
A
businesses.
lot, a lot.
And a lot of people are not going to have jobs after this. It is frightening what it can do to the world economies. How are people going to survive this? This is beyond health. This is health and
Beyond.
also livelihood for a lot of people right now. What?
You are touching on some very, very serious and scary issues, because like war and famine and all that, you will also have a boom in industries that you never really, expected to.
Yeah.
Off the top of my head, so obviously supermarkets are doing well, drugstores are doing well, delivery apps are doing well, and all this. So it's not always, even in the most depressing of times, there's some sector that's doing well. So they'll pick up some slack, right? So people will tend to move. But what worries me is the vast shift from sectors, let's say like BPO and even to a certain degree POGO. Just remove how you personally feel about the
Yep.
actual and all. Just stay, because I'm not
Okay.
discussing the morality, right? We're just discussing the actual economic impact. When you have something like the BPOs faced with a crisis like this, they're now going to reevaluate everything they know about their business model and go, you know what, guys, we were vulnerable.
Yep.
We cannot be susceptible anymore. So they're going to look for solutions. What is the most obvious solution there? AI, because it will not make them vulnerable anymore to something like this.
Although there's also another one that's maybe faster and easier at this point for BPOs in particular, especially call centers, for example, which is a big industry in the Philippines, is instead of asking them to go to the office, just work from home.
That's
Think about
what
it.
we were talking
Answer
about
the call
earlier.
from home.
Is how it's going to shift there. My worry is that ideally you would want a work from home system, but you know how business works. A big business like that, if you are one of these major ones that employ hundreds of thousands of people, maybe even more, I don't know what the biggest BPOs in the world employ, but they're in the hundreds of thousands, right? If you are the CEO of a BPO and I say to you, Chris, you know what, COVID-19, now that's all over, how big a hit did you take? Oh God, James, that was the biggest hit we've ever taken. We lost 20 billion, whatever, blah blah blah. Okay, fine. You know what, I've got a solution here. It's going to cost you 30 billion, but it's going to completely automate and it's going to remove all your other problems. And you're going to go, all right, what's the work from home thing? Sir, it's going to cost also 30 billion. All right, but then we're going to still deal with human beings. And this is what scares me. You see, when you put it that decision in front of somebody, it's going to present them with a solution that may not be, if they go for the AI, which is most likely, I
Yep.
hate to say it, but it would make more business sense. It's not the kind thing to do,
Yep.
it's not the humane thing to do, but it is the business thing to do. And if they go that way, we literally wipe out a sector, a massive sector. These are massive skilled workers that don't have really any place to go. What's that impact going to have on society? So this is going to do a major shuffle, like you said. Unemployment will happen. People will move into different areas and fields and sectors and all that. But it will displace a massive amount of people. You cannot deny that. So how are we going to take care of this sector of society? Because like the author of Sapiens says, Noel Harari, he says, the biggest threat we have now to humanity is AI, because when you remove a person's purpose, what have you got? You know, these things like with AI, it's not like the Industrial Revolution that took decades to be able to really put people
Yes.
out of work. That gave a transition period for people who were once out in the fields to work in the factories. They had like 10 years to transition.
Right.
AI could be a year, could be even less. We don't know.
Yep.
And this is what worries me about all these sudden changes are going to happen. We have so much invested in POGO, in BPO, and what happens when this chunk just dries up? And if it dries up in a year because it's replaced with AI, these are the things that we really need to consider now. Now, I'm not saying it as a doomsday prophecy, because there could be other opportunities that we just don't know. We know we could learn. A lot of these people in BPOs are skilled workers with the capability to learn how to code. I know that became a very sensitive topic in the States, but that's sensitive because they were talking about retail workers, factory workers, and truck drivers
Yep.
to learn to code. These are people who didn't finish high school or
Yeah.
traditionally. So of course it became a very unrealistic and insensitive debate. But the BPO sector are educated, tech savvy. So this is the perfect breed or perfect sector of society to be able to transition into somebody's got to develop AI. So their job might just change. So I don't know where all the chips are going to fall, where all the cards are going to fall, but there's definitely going to be that massive shakeup you're talking about. Massive. But with the massive unemployment will come massive opportunity in other areas. Will it be enough? Time will tell.
I think
I
eventually,
remain hopeful.
I think it'll all work out. It always does. It always seems like when there's a displaced group, there's always another group that comes out. When there's an industry lost, a new industry crops up. How many times have we seen it over, not even in our lifetime, beyond our lifetime, where jobs of a certain kind
Too many.
were available and now are not? I think if we were going to talk about something else here, like the education system has to start to evolve to be able to accommodate all these new jobs that are popping out that were not here before.
That's another topic that we should spend a little time on is education. You see, I think this should change the landscape of education because we have been educating. We all know that we've been educating. Our education system's outdated, right? We're training
very
people
outdated. All over the world, James. Not just
all over the world. All
US,
over the world, exactly.
The U.S. public system education is so bad. Most I don't want to be controversial when I say this, but I believe there are a lot of Americans that don't get the proper education because it's so bad.
They don't. And when we say the proper education, we're not talking about 2 + 2 = 5. They taught you wrong. It's got nothing to do with that. We're talking about what they're teaching you that's relevant to life now, because we're sending you through 12 to 15 to 18, depending how many years of school to train you for something that you will be doing for the rest of your life. When none of us can literally tell you what's going to happen in 5 years.
Oh, James,
we don't even know if that job will be real in 5 years.
It's true. So you're getting all these degrees and you don't even know what to do with it. But just I want to add, the coronavirus, this lockdown, you know what it created? I have friends that own schools and they've been trying to get people to enroll in online education. And because of the lockdown, they were able to implementing it, and now it's starting to move because there's a lot of students that are still trying to finish their education. So the online education, study from home, is going to start. It's working now. There are schools that are doing it that were ready for it from last year, and now they just kicked it up another notch because of the lockdown. So
I know what else is going to boom?
I'm sorry?
You know what else is going to boom while we're talking about it? Because you said education from home.
What else?
Esports.
Oh, yeah. Oh, shit. You're
Esports
right.
now are going to explode. If you're a franchise like anything, WWE, UFC, Formula One, and you've now been hit with this and you realize, oh my God, we were wide open there. We left ourselves. We can't afford to have this risk, not with this investment, right? So now you'll see the shift to esport to hedge their bets, because if one pandemic comes, they're pretty sure that these things are going to come closer and closer together, because 8 billion people almost we have in the world.
Going on a bigger topic than that really us humans are killing Earth, or we're killing the environment. Mother Earth is dying because of us. And therefore, I honestly, I don't want to sound insensitive, but the fact is, I believe all of this is happening because we created these things with our the way we abuse and exploit the environment.
Yeah,
and that's the sad part about it.
Another positive, while we're speaking about the positives of how this can impact us later on, is I think it will finally, hopefully, because this is global, that we've all experienced it there. I don't know how many other countries have been, very few countries have been exempt, and even those that are exempt are not cocky. They're not going, haha. No, they're going, we were lucky. Everyone knows that if you didn't get this, you dodged a bullet. All right. So everyone's in agreement. This crap is serious. All right. So one thing that it might do is change our mindset. The way we look at the earth, because we always look at the earth, save the earth, whatever, but now she's fighting back. It's different when she's fighting back in more ways than one. Like she's had natural disaster. Now there's these pandemics, which are being caused also by our behavior. If we just readjust the way we look at the earth and we start putting her needs first, like you would with any relationship that you wanted to continue for the rest of your life. I mean, if you're in a good relationship, you take care first of the needs of your partner, and then everything will fall after that. But if you're there to rape and pillage and see what you can get out of it, it ain't going to last. It's a
Yeah.
very temporary arrangement, and that's the way we've been treating the earth like a one night stand.
Yeah.
We now need to start getting into a very long-term serious relationship with her and understanding first it all starts with her needs, because when she reacts, we got no chance. We're
Exactly.
powerless. She's let us know once again who's boss.
And this has been happening the entire 2020. Think about it. Volcanoes erupting, earthquakes, forest fires in the entire Australia. That was crazy.
2020 has been one hell of a year. I mean, some people are like, I've seen those memes like, have you tried unplugging 2020, turning it off for 10 seconds, switching it back on? I mean, this is pretty bad, man. Kobe
Yeah.
Bryant. I mean,
I really hope this is the last one. I really hope so, because I think this one was the worst of everything that's happened. This one tops it all, because when you say it's a worldwide pandemic, it is. I don't think anyone was spared, James. I don't think there was any country spared. Not a single one. This is something that's it will change the way we do business, the way we live our lives. One thing I'll tell you is this: if the lockdown, and okay, before I say it, give me a prediction. When is the lockdown going to be over in the Philippines? And do you think overall, when is the lockdown going to end?
I think it's going to extend a little longer. I'm thinking 6 weeks from the 15th. Was it? It'll be declared on
March
the 15th.
15. Yeah, I think it was March 15. Yeah.
I think I'm thinking end of April, because there's Holy Week, pa, diba?
Yep.
Or does Holy Week fall before the 14th or not? I don't remember.
Before. I think it's before. If I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
I think it's way before. Yeah.
Siguro naman, we don't take leave on Holy Week and try to, but I'm guessing it'll probably go to the end of April, but I think it will be unlocked in stages.
Yeah.
I think that they will slowly grant us back our freedom, so to speak, in stages. And I think this will be for more reasons than just the pandemic. Because if you're a government right now is not to sound selfish about it, but they got to be practical, right? If I was in government right now, and I'm not trying to run for government, I'll make a lousy politician. So I'm not campaigning for myself. I'm actually doing the reverse. But I think a smart politician would also look at it and go, okay, maybe we can hit two birds with one stone. There are other problems that you can solve if you have a slow ingression back into the society. Roads, for example. Now would be the perfect time. As long as our health, if you could solve the immediate threat of the workers on the roads, so long as you could make sure that they were okay, dude, spend 2 weeks on the roads when nobody's on it. You know how much work you can get done?
Yeah.
That's a crap load of work. Now that's just one sector. There's so many other sectors that they couldn't fix because there were too many people in it.
Yes.
It's like trying to renovate a house that you're still living in. Now the house has been vacated. Now's the time to do some serious renovation. Fix the roof, fix the plumbing, all the crap that you couldn't do before. You might want to take advantage of this moment. So a slow ingression back, slowly by slowly bring them in.
I agree. And I think the good thing about that is it'll also prime the economy and hold it off from going into a complete recession. So by doing
that's true.
You're creating jobs, you're giving people jobs, but still practicing safe distancing, social distancing. And I think, for me, honestly, it's going to go beyond April. I think it's going to hit mid-May. If we're lucky, mid-May, honestly. Now, here's the thing. There is a possibility the lockdown could be longer. If it happens, what I'm thinking is, right now, even as early as now, I think businesses should start thinking of ways to be able to work in this new reality we live in. And assume that this is the new reality. Even if the lockdown ends or not, just thinking ahead already, saying, as a business person, what kind of business or how can I adjust my business to this new reality so I can still thrive and life goes on? Because if we don't end this pandemic soon, and without a vaccine, James, without a vaccine, I think it's unrealistic for any government to say, end the lockdown, even if we don't have a vaccine and there are still people infected and we don't know. In the Philippines, where we can't test everyone, it's impossible to test 100 million people. That's just the reality. It's impossible. There has to be some way to be able to move forward regardless, at least plan out different things, right?
And like we said earlier, not just because of COVID-19. These are behaviors that will reward us no matter what.
Yes.
Imagine, like I said, the typhoons we have, the calamities we have, the transport problems we have, the congestion that we have on the road, and all the problems that come from overpopulation, all the problems that come from other diseases that stem
Yep.
from living in esteros and stuff like that. If you spread out the economic activity, we've been trying to do it physically, by physically building roads to get them out of Metro Manila. But nobody wants to leave because who wants to be first, right? This is where all the opportunity is. Ikaw muna. So now, if we create those opportunities digitally through digital hubs, and
Yep.
we start developing a tech sector outside of Metro
I
Manila, now
agree.
is the better time. Now is the best time to do that. Nobody wants to be the first, but in a pandemic like this, everything goes back to zero.
Yeah.
And now we're like, okay, you know what? It's not anymore about it's what to do now. It's about how to prevent us from insulating us from this same impact in case another pandemic, a typhoon, an earthquake. There's so many threats that we face,
Yes.
and we are always vulnerable while we still need people to physically show up. Of course, if you are there's so many jobs that you have to be there, right? A doctor. Well, actually, a doctor,
Um.
not every day.
No.
Surgeons, of course.
As a matter of
Surgeons,
fact,
definitely.
yeah. As a matter of fact, the medical field right now, they are creating a way to be able to do consultations online. The
There you go.
non-essential consultations,
Non-essentials, yeah.
and it'll save
That's
time.
mainstream in the US na. That's
Oh yeah,
mainstream na.
in the
Mainstream in the
Philippines,
US.
they're
Not
trying.
wala pa, wala pa.
But yeah, I hope they're
Like,
able to do it because it saves time, even for me, to be able to go to the doctor, wait. At least here, you have an appointment, you go online, they'll say, what are your conditions, blah, blah, blah. And then non-essential, here's your prescription, you're out, right? It makes life a
yeah,
lot easier for everyone.
it makes life a lot easier, dude. I mean, like, you can, Lifeline's been doing this for a while, but not into the way that we're talking about it, because they send a doctor to you, right? They send a doctor on call to your house, and they do all of this. So that's great. But you take it to the next level where you just say, like, okay, you do it face to face, but you need blood drawn. You just send a med tech to your house. Okay, the med tech can
Right.
do like a grab delivery, and they just take your blood, they take your temperature, they take your pulse and whatever and all that. They do those vitals for you. If you and then they go, and nobody's exposed. These are the
Yes.
solutions that will rear itself once desperation kicks in. Necessity is the mother of all invention, as they say. And now we really need to invent fast, because people's livelihood is
Yeah.
dependent on it.
And
I have a lot of positive, I know, I hold a lot of positive hope for this.
I think so. I think there is something as I don't know. I don't want to sound like insensitive about this as well. But the truth is, I think there are a lot of learnings. There are positives amidst all the negative things that are happening. I feel bad though that there are a lot of people dying. I feel really bad about it. And do you know that the virus has it apparently, I'm not sure, but I read that it leaves a permanent damage on the lungs, even if you're cured from it. I don't know if you know that. That's the
No,
scary
I didn't
thing.
know that.
A while ago, you mentioned that it's nice to be able to decentralize everything because we're so centralized in Metro Manila. BPOs now are actually fairly decentralized. A lot of them are all opening in different provinces already. And the reason they do that is because the rent is cheaper there, labor is cheaper. So they're moving all over the provinces, which is a good thing. And I think the more we decentralize work and people, the better, because there's a lot of land in the Philippines. There's a lot of land everywhere. People just like to be centralized in areas like Metro Manila. But if you think about it, there are a lot of land that people can move to, which will help prevent problems like this. And the problem is because of we're so centralized, we're so dense.
This is how we've been doing it for millennia now, right? You build a town by the river because it's near the port. That's where you get the trade. So all this urban planning has been designed around, well, convenience, and then later to influence behavior, etc. But like we talked about with the handshake, there's no more reason to, because now we figured out how to get goods from the port of Manila
Yep.
to a central dispatch. So we don't need to be geographically but we are creatures of habit once again. So we will continue to do that until somebody says this is no longer an option. That's the only time we're going to get off our butts and say, okay, fine, party's over. Now we got to figure out something else. And that
Yep.
something else is going to be, like you said, the BPOs. I've asked this of BPO so many times because I was like, if the very concept of a BPO is to outsource your process, meaning I could order a pizza in Denver, Colorado, and it will be picked up by a guy in Manila, and somehow my pizza will still arrive me. Why, if it can be anywhere, does it have to be BGC, Libis, Ayala? Why? Their answer to me was always the talent pool. It's, James, we need to go, the talent pool is in the cities. So we cannot expect the same level outside. And I was like, but surely there's got to be a way if you increase the wages. We've tried, but tried meaning it was just easier to go into the cities because they could solve that problem, talent pool. Now that this has happened, it's a disruptor. It's nature's disruptor now, coming in and going, well, you know what? I'm closing that option for you, mofos. It's over. Find another way. Now we're like, ah, damn it. We got to figure it out. Now they'll either do one of two things. The biggest problem BPOs have is they're not evil people. I think they're great for our economy, and they're good people, but they're trying to get over this problem of security and privacy. You cannot have people working from home with the data that's so sensitive. But that's now, Chris. That's because we didn't have a situation that forces us to think outside the box and go, is there another way to solve this problem? We don't know if there is, but of course we don't know because we haven't thought about it yet because there was no need to think about it.
Right.
Now that this crisis has hit, BPOs and tech sectors will look at it and go, we don't want to remain that vulnerable again because we lost 20 billion pesos in the last month or so, whatever the figure they're losing. So let's invest in this to protect us from that. That's how business works.
Yeah.
Then you set up a new thing and you figure out, wow, we can solve the privacy issue by doing XYZ. I don't know what XYZ is. I'm not techie, but the principle is the same. Somebody will come and solve that problem because there's a need for it. And then boom, I'm hoping they do that before AI comes in and says, you know what, why even think of working from home when you can work as a little dot in a little flashing light somewhere in China or wherever.
Right.
That's another thing we need to also consider. The dependency we've had on China has to come into question. I'm not talking the Philippines, I'm talking the world.
Yes.
11 out of, I think they said there's 11 of the most life support drugs in the US are coming out of China. You realize how connected we are. So you can say what you like about China, but it's not your iPhone anymore that you're not getting. It's your medication to keep you alive because we've put all our eggs in that basket. So now the world's also have to look at, wait. Now we're not looking at, we have to look at the complete hedging our bets.
Yep.
Maybe it's not a good idea to put it all in China because if China eventually finds the vaccine for this, they will become the superpower of the world.
And I know
between that and 5G, we have no chance.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, those
I'm not
two.
talking Philippines. I'm talking globally.
Yeah, I think
The U.S., Russia will all fall second.
I think at the end of the day, the problem is that that we become a world. When I say we, the world has become dependent on China because China was supplying a lot of what we need at the cheapest possible cost. But there was a cost to that people don't see. It is human labor. The problem is they were getting paid so little to be able to produce all these products that we want and need all over the world. And that's why people were always going to China. But if people or companies just decide to sacrifice the bottom line, the profitability a bit, and just manufacture it somewhere else, decentralize it, then I think we won't be so dependent on that one country that is able to give us everything cheap. Even us in the Philippines, Chinese labor is so cheap compared to labor in the Philippines that we outsource a lot of our products to China, that we've lost the industries here because we were losing because of cost. It was just a matter of cost.
Yep. And you notice how Chinese, you can scale this up or down, right? Because we're talking about the whole nation against the world or their strategy against the world. And you look at Chinese communities when they land in a new country, the pattern tends to be, at least I've noticed, the Chinese community will come here. They won't sell you the cake. They'll sell you the sugar, the flour, the egg, the baking soda, the trays, the oven. They become your supply chain.
Yes.
Right? And people tend to turn a blind eye to that because they're like, in the beginning, everyone wants to be the artiste, everyone wants to be the baker and the candlestick maker and all this. But the raw equipment and materials are usually always done from China. I'm talking the local community. You look at how every community started out, like in Chinatown here. You're reliant on the raw materials. That's what they're doing to the rest of the world now. Sige, outsource to us. We'll take care of all the stuff you don't want, so you can be the creators, and you can be the this. And because the Westerners, we love this. I'm an artist. I do that. I'm Apple. I design the phone. I don't make it, but I design it, and I have really nice infomercials with white backgrounds telling you about all this. But I farm out all the crappy stuff to China. But that's where the strength is.
I agree.
The strength is there because when that supply chain gets disrupted, oh, guess what? All us creators, we're nothing. And now they're using the same strategy against the world. I'm not even saying this as it's a bad thing or a good thing or whatever. I'm not even putting morality into it. I'm just saying that's my observation of how I see them being clever and smart and utilizing their position in the world, whether it's starting a new community in a country or as a world player.
What's your take on racism right now?
Is the question about now, or because you kind of have to look at it and take the whole Pogo thing before COVID, and,
right.
and
No,
the Spratlys before that.
Right. I think maybe I'm looking at it from a global perspective because not just in the Philippines, in the States, a lot of Asians, not even Chinese, but Asians in general now are looked up like is a lot of even in Europe when you're Asian, again not Chinese, Asian, you know, you're gonna get a fair amount of hate or racism because everyone that looks Asian is being blamed for what's happening with COVID.
Yeah. But if your question is about the U.S. and Trump now calling it the Chinese virus,
that was.
That's horrible, dude. It's horrible because
it's intentional.
That's Trump's style. It's intentional. See, I'm fascinated by Trump. I'm not a supporter, but I'm fascinated because I can't help but look at how he does what he does, and I can't also help but think if he used those powers for good instead of evil. How much better the world. But as a test case, he's still fascinating because what he does better than any other human being I've ever seen in my life is he knows how to divert attention. Just when you think, oh my God, how could he say that? Whatever, this guy, he's going down. Boom, he says something else. And you can't keep up. You just can't. You're like, you're on him about the wall, and then now he's called it the Chinese virus. You haven't even finished getting offended there. And he said something else. He just knows how to dangle the press. He knows how to play them. So who's in control? Think about it. Who's in control? Is the press? Is he in control? Because he's the one controlling the press. They're hanging on every word he said.
Yeah, absolutely.
I know it's difficult. It's easier said than done. But as an experiment, I would love to see the result of if they had just stopped reporting everything that Trump said, what would happen? 1 month. What would happen? I think they could contain the virus. I'm not talking about COVID. I'm talking about I'm talking about the orange virus.
Right. No, you know what? I like what you just said. That's interesting because that goes back to your earlier suggestion where if they weren't so hypersensitive to be able to throw the fastest news out there and get the most sensational news, then people like Trump who say sensational things will not get the audience. But because the media does react, because they're like, oh my God, that's sensational. Because he's saying something that's crazy, I want to post it. That's the problem. Where do you draw the line? So Trump knows that, the media knows that. You can't blame the media for wanting to post that. But at the same time,
you can't.
You can? Did you say you can't?
No, you can't.
You can't?
No. You can't because you've turned it into a business. Media is a business. So he's playing the cards beautifully. He looks stupid, but I personally now am convinced that he's just brilliant at the way he does it because he doesn't care how he looks. Sensationalism and shock value is relative, Chris, because
I know
I could say something here and it's not shocking, but I say the same thing in Saudi Arabia, I'll be locked up, right? Yeah. So with Trump, what he does is he keeps doubling down. When he says something shocking, it's only shocking because you haven't heard it before. So if that's backfiring, he'll just say something more shocking. So they'll just go here, and then here, and then here. And then who's the one leading everyone around? He's leading the press like with a leash because they cannot resist the urge. Yeah. But if they decide, hey, wait, hang on a second. Back up, get away from behind the yellow line. We, the ones who write, we're the ones who place value on this. We're the ones who determine the value of this. If we give it attention, it has value.
Yeah.
If we don't, it doesn't. So yung pala, we're the ones with the power here, but we don't know how to use it. So that's why he's winning the game all the time, every day and twice on Sundays. So if you don't react, you starve it of the oxygen. Easier said than done because he's the president of the United States and he does have things to say. But I'm just saying, if they could collectively get into a room and talk among themselves as adults and say, you know what, guys, he's playing us. Can everyone just relax and stop reacting and start responding? There's a difference to reacting and responding. When you respond, it means you've thought of it. When you react, you're just like,
Yes.
so that's like road rage. You react. Whereas when you're in an argument with somebody intelligent, you respond. Okay, you don't want to react. It never ends nicely, right? You do martial arts. You never fight an emotion. I'm sure that's probably the single rule that you tell your fighters and stuff. Never step in there with emotion. This is why fighters try and get you off your game, right? All the time with the trash talk. Let you fight from a point of emotion. You cannot think clearly when you're like that. Well, Trump has got them all in emotion. He knows how to tap all those buttons every time. So you're always reacting from your emotion and you're never responding to the actual situation.
Okay, one last thing, James, before we go. Do you have a message for everyone out there, for all the Filipinos right now that's watching this? What's your message?
You know what? Stay calm. Okay. Firstly, stay calm. Other countries have been through this. It's going to be a rough ride. Pace yourselves. Understand that this is going to be a long journey. Prepare till the end of May, as Chris said. Not the end of April, at the end of May. If we get out earlier, it's a bonus.
Yep.
But if you prepare till the end of May and you pace yourself mentally, physically, emotionally through this, you will find opportunities. It's not all black out there. Everything comes. Crisis has danger and opportunity written all over it. Okay. So yes, some people are going to go and struggle, but you can reinvent yourselves. Trust me, if you look hard enough, you will find the silver lining in everything. There's not a lot we know, but what we do know, you can put in the bank. Isolate, stay away, just stay away from other people. There's nobody that's debunked that yet. We've had the world's greatest minds in this. Hygiene, proper hygiene. Just make sure that you keep yourself clean and you wash your hands, you keep yourself sanitized and all the things that you touch around you. If you just do those bits and then you are very, very careful with what you spread, meaning not just the virus, but the news and your attitude. Your attitude is something also that's more contagious than the virus. So if you, whatever you put out in social media, take a deep breath first before you put out and ask yourself a very honest question, and only you answer to yourself. Is this helping or is this hindering? What effect am I having on others? Because everything we've realized, if there's something we've realized, we're all connected more than ever. Everything you says has an effect, a ripple effect. And now that effect is amplified because everyone's searching for information. Everybody's there at the same spot. So be very careful. If you used to take one breath before, take 3 breaths now before you post. Just be tempered. We got to get through this together. And it's not a sprint, it's a marathon.
That's so awesome, James. I love how you summarize it. Thanks so much for your time. Hey, everyone. Thank you. And have a good day, James Deacon. Enjoy the self-quarantine.
Thanks, Chris. I really enjoyed that, man. You stay safe, brother.
Take care, James.
Bye.
See ya. Bye-bye.